Welcome back to another episode of Exploring the Spectrum. I'm Steve Strum. Today we have Nicole Moehring, and hopefully I got that correct, with Voices of Change 2018, and we are going to discuss a topic that's often not covered anywhere. So, Nicole, I'm going to do some of the backstory, make sure I have this correct, and kind of give it to you to share, your story of courage. So, you have two kids, a boy and a girl. Both of them have developmental disabilities in autism land, which is the purpose of a lot of what we're talking about today. And both of these children, who are already beset with challenges where they feel they may fall out of societal norms or fall out of societal support system, had a very unique and terrible experience that helped you with the inspiration to create this organization. I'm going to let you tell the story. And thank you for having the courage to come on and talk about this and how you're helping change other people. So, Nicole, with that, tell us a little bit about your story.
So, Steve, thank you again for having me on. So my son has autism and Fragile X syndrome, and my daughter is actually neurotypical. And in 2016, my son disclosed, every parent's worst nightmare, that he was molested by someone we knew and trusted. And, I had the information, I believed him immediately, but now that I have the information, what do you do with it? Because no one prepares you for this. You're given a diagnosis when the child's young, but you're not given any, of the statistics that now, these kids are I believe the last statistics I saw were 5.9 times more likely to be victims of sexual abuse, which is huge. And I honestly believe that number's skewed because of the number of incidents that are unreported. So again, I have this information. I don't know what to do with it, but I know I have to do something. And, so I reported it to a psychologist. She's a mandated reporter. And so the process starts, with Child and Family Services and, with the police and whatnot. And, as we go through the process, it was just extremely disheartening just to know how many individuals that are supposed to be protecting him just basically just kind of brushed it off because he has a developmental disability, and they just weren't hearing his convictions and hearing what he had to say. And the one thing I want people to know is kids that disclose this with developmental disabilities especially, they don't know how to lie. So that was just so disheartening. While this is all going on, my daughter, who was 2.5 years younger, she discloses that a different perpetrator um, sexually assaulted her. And she was 15 and a half at the time. She came to me immediately, and she just, discloses to me, I reported it. The justice system with her, working with her, was completely different. They cared about, what she had to say. She stood strong in her convictions. That boy, he received jail time. He's on the sexual registry for 15 years, received a mental health assessment, community service, and the list went on for him. My daughter received justice. My son, on the other hand, he was still allowed to see the perpetrator. My hands are tied. I'm divorced. There was nothing I could do about it. And because he was still allowed to see the perpetrator, you can imagine it happened again. They don't just stop once. This is an illness. So he discloses again, and it it was just again disheartening, sickening. I mean, it affects your entire life. We're going through the motions once again, and I'm sitting here going, I can't even believe this is happening again. And it took 7 months from the time he disclosed the second time till the time they would even execute a search warrant. That's unacceptable. Laws need to change. People need people, and when I say people, I mean, the justice system, lawyers, law enforcement, prosecutors. They need to listen to these children. These children have every bit of a right to be heard, to have their story heard. Whether they're nonverbal, whether they're verbal, they have the right to have their cases heard. Um, and they don't. 9 times out of 10, they don't. And that's so disheartening, not only for my family, but for many, many, many other families out there.
Well, regardless of whether or not these people that, these children, right, or adults, or little kids,
Mhm,
or anywhere in
mhm.
between, they've got challenges as a concept integrating into what is normalized society due to some things that they're struggling with. Obviously, whether it's a physical disability, a mental disability, some sort of attitudinal type of situation. But everybody who has to deal with sexual assault, it not only is it a terrible thing to just conceive of, but the burden of proof in something like that can be very high. And that would be for an able bodied individual. So this obviously would, I think it's fair to say, upset mom, but then also drove mom to do something about it. So tell us a little bit about Voices of Change 2018, what you do and what your mission, vision, values are to try to help those that are either going through this or hopefully prevent them from going through it ever.
So as I noticed the drastic differences in, the justice system and, just how my son was, I don't want to say mistreated, but
Treated
what I'll
differently?
say is treated differently. Yeah. Discriminated against is one way I really feel. And my daughter noticed it too at 15 and a half, and she said, Mom, why am I being treated one way? And, Evan is my son's name. Why is Evan being treated differently? This isn't fair. And obviously I know fair is a very wide, topic and thought process, depending on who you are and what the situation is. But she was right. So, we started talking about this, and we came up with the idea of Voices of Change, because not only do these kids need a voice, because a lot of them don't have voices and they need advocates, but we started realizing as I started, looking into, late nights being on the computer, trying to find supports and resources and psychologists and psychiatrists and any kind of means that could help our family. Because this didn't just affect my son, it affected, I'm since remarried since I got divorced. And, it affected us as a family unit. And it's life altering. I mean, our entire world turned upside down. And to this day, 6 years later, we're still dealing with the ramifications of this. And so when I started seeing all this, and these things aren't just readily available, they're not at your fingertips where, you can just go on the internet and search, resources for kids with developmental disabilities that were sexually abused. And they're not just there. Are resources out there? Yes, there's resources out there, but they're not available. And I didn't think it was fair that someone that's going through this insurmountable pain, you're trying to help your family, you're trying to help your child, it shouldn't be that difficult. And as I started talking to other people, I noticed that people were saying, you know what, I gave up. So then when somebody gives up, well, you're not getting the proper treatment that you need, that your child needs, that your family unit needs. So then you're not going to heal. And then as a result, that trauma just keeps carrying through life.
Right.
Um, so that's how Voices of Change, came into fruition. Then I started looking for education pieces to help my son understand, what happened to him, and then trying to find education pieces for our family. How do we deal with this? How do I deal with it? Because, we all were coping in different ways. And those individual pieces were not out there. And that's when I, thought came up with this thought process of we need materials to for that prevention piece, for that awareness and that prevention piece, so that we can reduce the risk of abuse for these
Well,
kids, for these families.
that is amazing that you had the courage to stand up that not once, twice, but three times, right?
Mhm.
And what we're going to do is we're definitely going to hang your website up there, which is voicesofchange2018.org. We're going to hang it on iwannabuzz.com website for people to come and check you out. As we take this away for our audience viewership that's going to see this, what's the one thing that a person can do to help Nicole as family mom or Nicole as executive director, founder, president of Voices of Change? What is the one thing that a person listening to this interview could do to help your family and the people that you're trying to impact?
If you see something, if you think your child's been a victim of abuse, say something. report it, because these kids can't always speak up for themselves, because let's face it, if they don't know what good touch or bad touch is, secrets versus surprises, they don't have that mental capacity all the time. We need, as parents, as caregivers, as special ed teachers, as the community, we need to be looking out for these kids. It's our jobs. It's our jobs to take care of these children. They're most vulnerable in the society. Um, Please, we need to work together. It takes a village. It truly takes a village. We have to eradicate this in some way, shape, and form. And I can't do it by myself. I need help.
Well, I understand. So when we put that website up there, I was looking at some of the notes from the meeting prep for the show. That you've got a whole list of things of like what's appropriate, how to talk to it, and they can get access to those resources on your website. And we'll hang that on iwantabuzz.com. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your heartfelt story. It's always something to talk about something that somebody's passionate about, and it's different when it's passionate because of a reason, and a reason happens to be your personal reason with your family. So thank you for your courage for coming on today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. And guys, thanks so much for joining us on Exploring the Spectrum. My name is Steve Strum. If you like us, share us. And remember, live with gratitude.